very lucky this morning to have two priests with us from Minnesota. This is So-Sung Lin, who led our Zazen Kai yesterday. And today, as Doshi, we have Myo-O, Marilyn Habermas-Schur, also they're both from Clouds in Water Zen Center. Sort of.
Yeah, Myo-O is kind of a honored guest teacher at Clouds and Water frequently.
And So-San is a guiding teacher at Clouds and Water.
And I'm associated with Hokyoji Zen Practice Community in Southeast Minnesota.
Thank you. Yeah. For those of you online, we have a handout here, which is also, you can access in your chat function through Zoom, which is just a reference for the talk that she's going to give on the Metta Sutta.
The Dharma is vast and subtle. The Dharma is vast and subtle. We now have a chance to see this. We now have a chance to see this. Study this and practice this. Study this and practice this. May we realize this true meaning. May we realize this true meaning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning. Good to see you. Good to see you in Zoom land.
Can everyone on Zoom hear? Okay? Good.
Oh yeah, I gotta remember that. So this morning I wanted to talk about the practice of metta. And I wonder, have any of you had the experience of practicing the divine abodes or practicing the metta practices?
Not formally.
Not formally,
Yes.
Okay, cool, all right. So I'm gonna give a little background and kind of talk about the four divine abodes and what they are and where they come from and why they're a good thing. So for those of you that I haven't met yet, I'll say I started practicing Zen in 1975 with Katagiri Roshi. So I knew Nonan since he was a scrapper, so to say. So Katagiri Roshi was my first teacher, my root teacher, and I really feel that I carry his Dharma. He died on March 1st, 1990. And in the late 1980s and through the 1990s, I also practiced and studied Vipassana meditation, which is where I learned the formal practice of metta. So since I started with Zen, then started taking a backward step, so to say, and practicing Vipassana was fascinating because it was like, oh, all these details about practice. Katagiri Roshi's teaching was, just jump into the big ocean. No idea what that meant, especially then. So that was great. And Zen was kind of a reaction to getting too attached to all those details. But so I just started in with jumping in the big ocean, then I went backwards and kind of learned what came before, which was really helpful for me and helpful for my sitting. So one of the practices we learned in Vipassana training was a concentration practice called the Brahma Viharas, or the divine abodes. So these were practices that were taught by the Buddha in order to develop the heart mind, develop the heart, so that it could respond to human life with tenderness, but without reactivity and grasping. It was a core teaching of the Buddha. And the reason I say that strongly is sometimes when I first started teaching metta in the Zen tradition, I got pushback, like, this isn't the real thing, this isn't the real teaching. So I want to push back. So here's the story. This is a legend that the Buddha first taught love and kindness in response to a situation, right? So he had a group of monks who were practicing in a forest haunted by tree spirits. So the monks were terrified and did not want to stay there. But the Buddha said, you go back to the forest, and he gave them instructions on how to cultivate metta, or loving kindness, and stay in the forest. So if that is a metaphor for us, how do we stay in the forest when 100,000 things are being thrown at us? Okay, so now I'm going to tell you a real story of my own about practicing in the forest. So one night during a sesshin at Hokyoji, which is out in the country, it's in the driftless region of southeast Minnesota and northwest Iowa. It's just beautiful. Some of you may have been there. Anyway, I was up on the hill. So if you've been to Hokyoji, I was up on the hill where Katagiri's ashes are. And I was sitting up late, after the last bell. And all sorts of creatures were busy in the trees above me and in the forest around me. And literally little objects were being thrown at me or falling on me from the trees around me. And also I heard crashes in the forest. Maybe Bigfoot was back there, I'm not sure. So I decided to practice metta as per the Buddha's instructions. And I directed metta, may I be safe and protected, and then I'll tell you all the phrases, and then I sent it out to all the animals, and honest to God, things stopped falling on my head or being thrown at me. The environment calmed down. So is it the inner environment or the outer environment? Are they separate? No. Okay. So, and here is going back to my answer to Zen about loving kindness practice. Brahma, this is a quote from Spirit Rock Meditation Center in Woodacre, California. Brahma Vihara practice can lead to full liberation from suffering, called the heart's release by love. In a poetic early discourse, the Buddha described the heart's release as being like a radiant light of the sun or the moon, and that a mindful one who develops limitless love weakens the fetters, seeing the end of attachments. So this is why it's a core practice of the Buddha. And I also thought of, as a stabilization for Zazen, doing these softening practices can be very, very helpful to help us in our seat. So there are 4 divine abodes. They are metta, which means loving kindness or friendliness or love. Karuna, which means compassion. Mudita, which means sympathetic joy. and upekkha, which means equanimity. So loving kindness, compassion, sympathetic joy, and equanimity. So one way to practice is to use these specific phrases, which I'm going to mention so that you hear them. Another way is to just generate the quality, the felt sense of loving kindness in the heart, and envisioning radiating it in all directions and to all classes of beings. So it's important then that each quality is known by us and felt literally, sensationally, kinesthetically by us. So it's not in the mind, it's in the body, but then it leaves tracks in the neural pathways of the brain. So it becomes a kind of a habitual response instead of my other habitual response, which might be reactivity, right? So I'm retraining, like we call it Zen practice, we call it training. We're retraining ourselves towards our deepest aspiration, which is not to suffer, not to cause suffering, and to respond to the world with wisdom and compassion. At least that's my aspiration. So when we consider Zazen, all four of the divine abodes can be beautiful doorways to deepening our concentration and unified state of samadhi, in which wisdom and clarity can unfold. So we hear, that concentration is one, right? And then insight, wisdom is the other, but really they're like that. So we shouldn't get too hung up on, am I concentrated? Am I getting wisdom? But it's just happening. It's all happening. Just jump into the big ocean. Okay. So these practices kind of lie on the concentration side. And as I said, they both arise together. So here's this really cool little poem that I found. Whoops, where's page 4? Oh yeah, that's right. I printed it on both sides, which I've never done before. Oh, I might have missed something. Okay. All right. Okay, so now I'm going to tell you another story of how I worked with loving kindness. And that was a few years ago, a person was elected to high office in our country, and this person scared the heck out of me. So the fear I felt at that time re-stimulated a kind of cellular memory of annihilation anxiety of the Holocaust in Europe. I felt myself literally leaving my body. So there was an opportunity to come to sit at Clouds and Water soon after this event, and I thought, oh boy, I better go do that. And so as I sat Zazen, the mindfulness got stronger, and I made a choice to practice loving kindness for this very difficult person. And the difficult person is a category of persons that you practice loving kindness for. So first I practiced it for myself, and then I practiced it for this difficult person. And to feel safe enough to practice it for this person, I placed this person on the far side of Lake Superior in Wisconsin, northern Wisconsin. And this was very interesting for me, because when I practiced it for them, I had insight arise, which is, I saw this person as a child, and I saw them as deeply damaged and confused. And I actually began to feel compassion, not stupidity, okay, but compassion in my heart. And that helped me to feel grounded. and capable of making wise choices in the face of this challenging moment. So that's a practical. It's practical. I mean, the Buddha gave it as a practical practice. Okay. So now, all right, so here's this great little poem. There's no jhana, which means concentrated state. There's no jhana for one with no discernment. No discernment for one with no jhana. But one with both jhana and discernment, they're on the verge of unbinding. So that's talking about concentration and insight together. This is actually from the Buddha, from the Dhammapada. Dhammapada 372, if you're a nerd, look it up. Okay. All right, and this is from Bhante Henepala Gunarantana. The practice of serenity meditation, metta, aims at developing a calm, concentrated, unified mind as a means of experiencing inner peace and as a basis for wisdom. The practice of insight aims at getting a direct understanding of the real nature of phenomena. Of the two, concentration and insight, the development of insight is regarded by Buddhism as the essential key to liberation. So, the reason the concentration kind of gets a little bit in Zen in a way is because it's the insight that freed the Buddha. So, if you have this unified mind and stable base, then we can see the nature of phenomena, the nature of self, right? So that is a direct antidote to the ignorance underlying bondage and suffering. Whereas serenity is recognized as common to both Buddhist and non-Buddhist contemplative disciplines, insight meditation is held to be the unique discovery of the Buddha and an unparalleled feature of this path. So that was really fascinating to me. It was like, because I have friends all over in different religions and stuff from being a chaplain, and there's kind of a lot of just have peace, and it kind of drives me nuts. And I thought, why does it drive me so nuts? Well, this is why it drives me nuts. Because peace without understanding the nature of reality is not liberating. It's okay to have peace, don't get me wrong. But then we don't see the real cause.
You're
of
just
our
stoned.
Say what?
You're just stoned.
Yeah, well, could be. I don't recommend that.
Peace man,
Yeah, exactly. So metta, which means friendliness, is the kind of basis of the divine abodes. Metta, loving kindness, is love that's not attached to its object, which as a mom seemed impossible. Like, are you kidding me right now? I'm so attached to my kids. So that's different, than our usual experience of love. Like, I love my daughter and my grandsons with every fiber of my being, and there's tremendous attachment. Let's just face it. But at least I see it. I mean, I don't just see it in my head. I feel it in my body. And that attachment is not something bad. That's natural. But it also can lead to problems in communication and understanding. Maybe some of us have experienced something like that. So I'm aware of this, and turning my heart-mind to metta softens that attachment and actually opens my heart. So I'll just say. And I want to tell you another kind of crazy story. When I went on a 3-month solo retreat, my husband and I practiced metta for each other at a certain time, like 5:45 in the morning or something. I was in a cabin in Wisconsin and he was home. And I wouldn't believe this if I didn't have the experience myself. We could feel it. And even when I went to California, practiced at Green Gulch, I said, okay, here's the schedule, let's do metta at such and such a time. It could feel it. So it's Woo, kind of powerful, powerful stuff. All right, so here are the phrases, okay? May I be safe and protected from all harm, from within and without. May I be happy and peaceful. May I be healthy and strong on this path of awakening. And may I live with ease of well-being in this world of change or emptiness or impermanence. And there's other phrases that people use, so you might look it up online and say, well, that's not what Myo said, but you know, there's different phrases. There's a lot of nuance in this practice, but classically we practice it, or any of the divine abodes, for categories of beings. We start with ourselves, then we offer it to someone who's been our benefactor, then a friend, then a neutral person, then a difficult person, and then all beings. Sometimes people say, I can't start with myself. Yeah. So then we might offer loving kindness to a place or a garden or a baby or ourselves as a baby or an animal. Like, basic the idea is you start with the easiest possible object that you can offer metta to, right? Something where it just naturally your heart opens. Yeah, and then the idea is that we build up this energy, so by the time we arrive at the difficult person, there's enough heart energy to even turn towards that person or situation for which we have resistance. Okay? Okay. So here's the other three. Karuna, compassion, mudita, sympathetic joy, and upekkha can be understood as different facets of metta that arise depending on what's going on, right? So all of the divine abode practices are based on the Visuddhimagga, a practice manual by 5th century Sri Lankan monk, famous Buddhaghosa, maybe you've heard of him. So the practice phrases for Karuna are like this. May you be free from suffering. I care about your pain. I care about your sorrow. I care about your suffering. Okay. So we're moving close to someone's suffering, but we're not trying to fix it, which is kind of a tricky wicket, right? When I was training to be a hospital chaplain, my first teacher said to me, Myo-o, 1 foot in, 1 foot out. Because, you know, I would like go see someone and it was a Vietnamese couple and they'd gotten on the last boat out of Vietnam and he used to be a judge and now he was like washing dishes, and, you know, and the whole story. And, you know, I got out of that room and I was just like, you know, I thought, how am I going to do this job? So she said, 1 foot in and 1 foot out. And that was a very good beginning instruction for Karuna, for me. So, getting close to a friend's suffering without taking it on is based on the insight and wisdom of the Buddha's understanding. That is, all conditioned things will pass away and have no inherent self-nature. That sounds so fancy schmancy, you know, intellectual. But when we're in life, to get close to someone's suffering and not collapse into it with them is tricky to learn how to do. But if we do collapse into it with them, we don't really help them, and we get exhausted, too exhausted to go home and make soup for them, right? We all know this. This is very practical. This doesn't mean that these feelings of grief and loss and tenderness and heartbreak are not real and a deep part of our lived experience. It doesn't mean that those feelings are a mistake or less spiritually evolved. That's not right, okay? It means that we can attend to the whole catastrophe with some ventilation, some groundedness, some breath, and some capacity to serve and let whatever's happening form and unform without obstruction, internally or externally. Now that's a high bar, okay. But we can aspire to that. And I was just so grateful for the 14 years I spent as an interfaith chaplain at the University of Minnesota Hospital, because I got to practice that like over and over, and especially when I worked at the county hospital. I really got to practice that because there was no instruction book at all. It was wonderful for me, like just, what the hell, I'm talking to a policeman in Chicago, okay. You know, and the things that would happen were really hard and shocking. So it means that our capacity to be things, as Suzuki Roshi said, just as they is, gets extended, that we're extending our capacity. So then we start to understand, oh, I vow to save all beings. Like when I was training as a chaplain, and I said, well, this is my vow, you know, I could see my teachers going, grandiosity, you know, I'm crazy. I was like, well, do you want me to explain it a little more? Yeah, okay, so mudita, sympathetic joy, we're taking joy and pleasure in other people's good fortune. Sometimes when other people have good fortune, do you ever think, what about me? You know? Yeah, but sometimes it's easy, like your sister has a baby and everybody's really happy and your heart just goes, you know, like that. Or the young man down the street gets a full ride scholarship so he can attend his dream college. You know? So we use phrases like these to encourage our capacities. May your well-being continue and grow deep. May your joy increase. And the Dalai Lama says, isn't it great we have all these opportunities to expand our own happiness, because I can be happy for your happiness. Okay, and now the shadow side. What about when our colleague gets the job we dreamed of getting? What about when the freshman gets the lead in the high school musical instead of me, the senior, who deserved it? And that didn't actually happen to me, but my daughter got the lead in the high school musical and she was a freshman, and the senior, who thought it was hers, was really mad. Really, really mad, so I remember that. So how do we practice mudita when jealousy or envy arise, which they will. I mean, they just will. We let those feelings of disappointment be known. We hold them. We don't talk ourselves out of them. We offer ourselves metta or karuna, like, I'm sorry, honey. Ouch. You know, honestly, sometimes I say that to myself. Not in my kitchen, in my bathroom. So only when we have touched some balance and equanimity, we can go back and try again. This practice of expanding the heart. One of my teachers says all the time, we practice practice. We don't practice results. Isn't that good? Mm-hmm. So when we feel ready, we can try to practice mudita because of our bodhisattva vows, because of Buddha, Dharma, Sangha. That's what gives us the energy, not because we want to be good people, although we probably do want to be good people, but I don't want it, you know, that's a kind of stress on ourselves. It's like, I need a really big aspiration to give me the energy to get back in there, you know. So upekkha, equanimity, okay, I'm on the right page, is said to be the queen of the divine abidings, those 4 qualities of heart, and the king of the 7 factors of enlightenment. So I don't know about you, but when I was growing up, equanimity wasn't even a known word in my household, or a value. Like, if you didn't have big feelings about stuff, that meant you didn't care. So no chance to practice equanimity. It might have been a betrayal of my culture to be equanimous. So when I discovered that this was an essential practice, I was like, oh God, I'm lost. But now I understand equanimity is the fruit of loving kindness and sympathetic joy and compassion. It's about balance, again, based in wisdom. Its cousins are loving restraint and loving relinquishment. And I say loving on purpose because I don't want restraint to be like shut down, or relinquishment be like cutting off. That's not what I mean. It's beautiful when I can relinquish my attachment. It's really beautiful now. So here are the phrases. May I be balanced and at peace. May my heart be big enough to hold all the joys and sorrows without being overwhelmed. May I be open to the way things are. May I be undisturbed by the coming and going of events. I'm having a pretty hard time with that one, just as an aside. Okay. And here's one I really came to appreciate. All beings are the owners of their karma. Their happiness and unhappiness depend upon their actions, not upon my wishes for them. 1 foot in, 1 foot out.
Say that again.
Yeah, I thought I should say that again. All beings are the owners of their karma. Their happiness and unhappiness depend upon their actions, not upon my wishes for them. You know, so if you have a being that's really suffering in your life, in your sangha, this is very important, because I wish that this person blah, 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 blah. And I even have a plan in my head, maybe, you know. But it depends on this person's choices, not my wishes for them. That ventilates, so I can still offer a balanced listening, I can still offer care, but I don't go down the rabbit hole with it, right? Oh, here's another one of my favorite. I will care for you, but cannot keep you from suffering. You know, that was also not a phrase in my upbringing. I have to keep you from suffering, that's, yeah. So cultivating equanimity does not mean we don't care. It means that we care so much that we want to care with a basis in wisdom. Does that make sense? Yeah. And this wisdom is expressed colloquially, in the famous serenity prayer, which probably everybody knows. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. That's pretty good. That is pretty darn good. So here is what Piyadasi Thera, a famous Sri Lankan monk in the 20th century, shared about what saving all living beings means. And so he said, for monks, because they were cheerful when it was difficult to be cheerful, and patient when it was difficult to be patient, they pushed on when they wanted to stand still and kept silent when they wanted to talk. That was all. So simple, but so difficult. A matter of mental hygiene. That's what he said. So sometimes I want to burst out, like, how could you think that? You know, that's the time for me to get the duct tape. And being a mother-in-law, lots of duct tape involved, I will say. So equanimity helps us to care with balance so that we don't burn out. I had so many chances at that county hospital to practice equanimity. One time, there was a young man, he was developmentally delayed. He was from an African-American community that didn't have a lot of support. His mother was dying. And I was in a consulting room with like the social worker, the doctor, there was like 5 or 6 people and me trying to explain to him what was going on. And he was standing up with a bottle of Coca-Cola, in a plastic bottle. And he just got completely overwhelmed. I mean, everyone was very kind and everything. He could not process. And he took that bottle of Coke, and he was a big kid, slammed it on the floor, went everywhere. Everyone in the room, I was sitting next to him, everyone in the room looked, and then looked at me. And I was like,
Get everybody you want.
yeah, you think I know what to do right now? Okay, but actually, I did something. You have to do something, you know? I took him to the side, and I had fortunately talked to him before. And I said, look, everyone is really upset. Everyone feels terrible with you. We don't know what to do. We don't know what to say. What can we, we want to help you, really. And he was really sweet. He said, okay, just don't get too close to me. I said, okay. So that was equanimity. That was equanimity. To my amazement, just rose up for the moment. So maybe equanimity is increasing because I'm just getting old and tired. That could be. But I'm amazed, really, that equanimity could take root, even in me with my conditioning from my childhood. So I want to end with a little poem. I'm trying to decide. These are so fabulous. Okay. This is a poem from the early nun named Sama, which means song. Like a dog forever getting ready to sit, all day and all night I circled my cushion. These days, body and mind sit together like old friends. Since we aren't getting anywhere, they eventually decided, why not have a seat and try to relax? There are many paths. So do you have anything you want to say? Yes, Vicki.
Well, thank you for that wonderful talk. My mother's in an Alzheimer's facility, and I would go in there, and I did not have one foot in, one foot out. I had both feet in.
Yeah.
Seeing all the suffering that was happening there, and I think I'm to a better place with this, of which I call professional distance. How is that similar or different than what you were describing? That I can handle someone screaming because they don't know where they are. I can give them a hug, and then I can maybe cry in the car on the way home, but not become like completely derailed by it.
Yeah, if you want to call that professional distance, that's fine. I mean, that can be your kind of like pith phrase. Okay, Vicki, professional distance, right? Okay,
Okay.
And it doesn't, we don't want to shut down the heart. I'll just say in a general way, not specific. We don't want to shut it down.
Right.
So what we're doing in spiritual practice is expanding our capacity to be with, So you already did that because you were here and you were like, right?
Yeah.
And then you went, okay, let me discern. This is not working. All right, what can I do? And so now you have this other thing, which you might call one foot in, one foot out, or professional distance. And you have expanded your capacity. Like you can be with the person down the hall who's screaming because they don't know where they are. You are aware. This is awful. It's unpleasant. It's really hard to be, but I'm being, right? And then you get in your car and you cry, fine, You release all that. It's like you went to the gym and you did, and then you get in the car and you go,
Yeah.
Yeah, so it sounds good to me.
Okay. So it's basically similar then?
Yes, it sounds very similar.
Thank you.
Did you want to say something?
No, Brian.
Okay.
There's this wonderful rub that I hear, that you want to teach, but you don't want to teach. You want to relieve their suffering, and you want to share, hey, here's something that will do that. But what I'm hearing is, that's not what you should be doing.
Well, yes and no, I think, from my understanding. I want to help. Why? Why do I want to help? Because I want to shut down their suffering? That's a mistake, right? I want to help because I can know that in my own heart. And I have faced and continue to face it in my own heart. That gives me some street cred, right? So then I can be with, I don't know how, because I don't know, it's a momentary thing. Just from that knowing. So I don't have to give, let me teach you the dividable, let me teach you about, the aggregates, no. I am knowing. This is giving me space. So I'm with someone and there's space. So, and as a chaplain, I had this idea or this sense, their natural wisdom will arise. It's in there. That's not mine. It's not because of me. It's not because of the Buddha. It's because the Buddha taught natural wisdom. Very complicated natural wisdom, but that's what he taught, and he just refined it. So their natural wisdom can arise if they're held. If I jump into their space, I'm stealing from them their capacity, and that's not helpful, right? Because they need to go to the physical therapist like me, and their muscles have to do the stuff, not mine, right? Does that make sense? Yeah, okay. What else do you have to say? Yes.
Hi, thank you for your talk. It definitely resonated with me in many ways. But I guess my question is sort of on fostering equanimity and staying in that state, because there are times where I feel super open and I feel almost like an unbearable amount of compassion. But then I think I kind of have a tendency to intoxicate myself with like a lot of information of the world, what's going on. And I find it hard to balance understanding and knowing what's going on and sort of being like okay with that, and then having the capacity to just still be compassionate and open and not just be closed off and angry.
So what do you do?
What do I do? I guess I just meditate, try to stay mindful, but staying in that state and kind of being balanced in all those emotions is difficult. And so I was wondering if you have any type of
well, one thing is Thich Nhat Hanh talks about what we feed ourselves. Like if I ate a whole chocolate cake, I would be really sick, right? So, we all have different things with food, what we need, what we don't need, So eating a balanced diet. So I need to know what's going on in the world. But do I need to read or, listen to 5 different podcasts about the same problem? Because when I listen to National Public Radio a ton, and a lot is very intelligent speculation, right? So beside the headline, this is just me, I say, okay, is this something I can do something about? And if so, what is it? And let me do that. Is this going to foster clarity of mind? Is this going to be useful? I kind of have, and then I go, and then I have to know myself, like, how much can I take? Not that much. Okay, turn it off, put on the classical station. And it is not me sticking my head in the sand, not at all. It's like, I think having a balanced view works better from my experience, not only my study. So if this is gonna throw me off like a whole thing of chocolate cake, say no, right? So that's just a practice. So it's really knowing yourself, right? Like, in this day, on this day, what's wise for you? You want to keep your heart open, you want to have balance, you want to practice for practice. Okay. If someone's beating you over the head, pretty hard to practice. Like, we don't come in here and people are screaming and beating each other because we can't practice under those conditions. Right? So it's like, how kind can you be yourself? And of course, if there is wise action you need to take, please do that. But we get, maybe we get, kind of, it's seductive, like over and over and over and over and over, Is that healthy? Maybe not. Is that okay?
Mm-hmm.
Does that seem possible?
Definitely. I mean, it is kind of seductive and like, I don't know. There's something to being angry, I guess. And there's something that's, I guess, valuable in it.
Yes.
To be kind of like, because there's some fundamental problems that we have in the world that I can't fix. But obviously, in my opinion, understanding them and the roots of their causes is a part of right view. To not to embrace those things and to maybe help other people see what's going on, to alleviate suffering and maybe work towards actual solutions. But there's just, it's a balancing act of getting too angry and too mad that things are the way they are, and then having compassion to just be like, well, let me do what I can. Let me just help the people that I can.
Exactly. And I will confess that I have been known to throw wooden spoons across the kitchen. Once, I hear something on the radio I just can't bear, with a few choice words. So I'm not like trying to be some goofy idea of a saint, I'm not down with that. Yes.
I don't want to make sure nobody else is, because I have a second question. Does anybody else want to go? Before I ask my second question. So you talked about doing loving kindness, going out for a person that you despised. I could do that intellectually, but it never really resonated emotionally. And then that turned into, I should or shouldn't, and of course that's a dangerous thing because they'll throw that out. So I stopped. Can you talk about like how long that takes to kind of mesh together? Because it never did for me. I only understood it logically.
Did you practice metta for yourself?
God, that's a big, long conversation. Eventually, yes. And it took a long time, like, a few years.
Okay, got that. And was there a being for which it was super like natural, easy to practice metta for?
I was drowning in suffering at that time. So no, I had.
Like you couldn't practice for a cat or?
Maybe my cats.
Okay. So I'm going to just keep it simple. Like go back to the being for whom it's just like falling off a log to practice loving kindness for. Like you see that little cat face and your little heart goes, you're silly, you're so silly, and may you be safe, it's just natural. And just keep practicing for the easiest. And notice how it feels in your body.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you're having a super good day and you're really getting off on practicing it for your cat, then you might try the next easiest person, like for me, a benefactor, because I have so much gratitude. Like, who has been a benefactor? Your next door neighbor lady? It doesn't have to be anything big deal. And then just try that. Okay, oh, I can still feel that. Oh, let's actually get, there's more. It's like you're creating this vibration in your body, right? Does that make sense?
It does, thank you.
You know, and if you're drowning in suffering, practice for a difficult person, forget about it.
Right.
You mentioned how hard it is for some people to start with themselves.
Yeah.
Do people ever practice with themselves as the difficult person?
That's a brilliant idea. Yeah, you go. Yeah,
Can I
so
say something about, I've worked a lot with the difficulty of, for myself, offering loving kindness to myself and with other people, who have that same issue. So I've come up with a lot of tricks to do it.
Come on, tell us.
So one trick is I first start with someone who is easy for me, but kind of like in a sort of benefactor, someone that I like, I believe in what they think about me. And then at first I offer loving kindness for them. And then I imagine them saying the phrases to me.
That's really good.
Oh, wow.
So that way I take it into myself, but it's not like me saying it to myself. It's someone else who I really like, oh, I respect them and I respect their opinion, and I don't think they would lie to me, and then have them say it to me. So then that helps. The other thing I do is I imagine myself as a little baby or young child. So like the same thing you did for the difficult person, like, okay, seeing myself then, so like now I might think, oh, well, you've made all these mistakes or whatever, I pile on. But when I was that baby, it's like, I haven't done anything wrong. And so then I could offer loving kindness to myself and then slowly like grow myself up and see the different things and then see if I could still do it. So then those are some ways that I
Brilliant. Thank you. So you can be really creative with this stuff,
Yeah.
I just kind of threw out the
Framework.
Blah. The framework, that the flowers grow on, and then you can be super creative with it. Absolutely.
Are you gonna say something?
Oh yeah, and by the way, I gave you this because I thought you might not know it. So this is another way to kind of engender the understanding of loving kindness. This is what the Buddha said, and also you could Google the benefits of practicing metta. And there's like, you sleep better, you don't get in arguments, your face is beautiful, stuff like that. So I left that part at home to tell you the benefits, but that makes sense, right? If you're a little peaceful in your heart. Sometimes I wake up and the first thing I do is, my mind does is like, tell me all the things I'm worried about. I don't know if that ever happens to you. So I wake up and, my mind's going, and I go, honey, and then I just start saying the metta phrases to myself. And because I've worked with them and they're intimate for me, it kind of helps me go, like let's not engender stress unnecessarily. Instead of talking myself out of it, which doesn't make me feel any better, I just practice metta in bed sometimes in the morning. Okay, so here's this beautiful, you just read it, the words. You can chant this. I wouldn't chant it with the Makukyo, however. It's kind of gentle, so I think this is what should be done by one who is skilled in goodness and who knows the path of peace. And if it's me, I'll start making up a tune.
We can sing it with the tune at Claus.
Oh, you do?
Yeah.
Okay, go. Let's sing it with
And
the
also
tune.
a great follow, they do it.
Okay.
So it's, this is what should be done by one who is skilled in goodness and who knows the path of peace. Let them be able and upright, straightforward and gentle in speech, humble and not conceited, content
contented and easily satisfied, unburdened with duties and frugal in their ways, peaceful and calm and wise and skillful, not proud or demanding in nature. Let them not do the slightest thing that the wise would later reprove, wishing in gladness and in safety, may all beings be at ease. Whatever living beings there may be, whether they are weak or strong, omitting none, the great or the mighty, medium, short or small, the seen and the unseen, those living near and far away, those born and to be born, may all beings be at ease. Let none deceive another or despise any being in any state. Let none through anger or ill will wish harm upon another, even as a mother protects with her life her child, her only child, so with a boundless heart should one cherish all living beings, radiating kindness over the entire world, spreading upwards to the skies and downwards to the depths, outwards and unbounded, free from hatred and ill will, whether standing or walking, seated or lying down, free from drowsiness. One should sustain this recollection. This is said to be the sublime abiding, by not holding to fixed views, the pure-hearted one, having clarity of vision, being freed from all sense desires, is not born again into this world. Nice. So, yeah. So I made up some tunes before that came around, and sometimes in the car I just chant, the seen and the unseen, those living near and far away, those born and to be born, may all beings be at ease. So you can just make stuff up too. Did anyone over here have a question? I'm so sorry, or something? No.
I will say, sure. When I was listening to you talk, and thank you, Mio, that was beautiful what you shared. I was thinking a lot about the dance between great doubt and great faith. And how the doubt is when we get hooked, when we feel attached, it's like, is this really all there is? Like, you cultivate the doubt of just what else is there? And then the great faith feels to me a little bit like trusting ourselves to use skillful means and loving kindness, to choose that. And just the relationship of that, like trying to cultivate some awareness of how those two interact.
That sounds very wise.
You get a gold star.
Yeah, I think that sounds really good. Yeah. Yeah. And don't worry too much.
Yeah, that's tough.
Yeah. Yeah, you know, like saying great, well, saying, just not making it too dramatic.
Yeah.
Great dog, great faith, ha, like, cause it's more like they're, popping around all day long. So you could say, oh, I kind of want to know when those things come up, and then what's happening? Like when great doubt happens, what's happening in the body? Like,
Yeah, right.
into a narrative, but like, oh, great doubt. Like, oh.
Yeah. I think sometimes that great doubt can feel like panic, but also sometimes it can be really spacious because suddenly it's just possibilities. It's not the thing I thought it was.
Oh, well, that sounds good too. So you're swimming with the sharks. That's practicing practice.
Yeah.
Practicing practice. Endlessly, okay? Life after life. That's what Katagiri Roshi. Rife after rife, he would say. Yes. Thank you.
I have one more
Yeah,
request.
please.
I think we would probably like to be able to have your version of the metta that you described to begin with, what you say when you do the metta.
Yeah.
Oh, what I say to myself?
Well, yeah, you basically said it at the beginning.
When you wake up.
You'd like it.
Oh, when
You'd
I
like
wake
it
up.
reminding
Oh,
you.
yeah. Well, one of my favorite things is I say, may I live with ease in this world of change. I just wake up and say, may I live with ease of well-being in this world of change.
But you said a longer version at the beginning, may I be safe.
The four phrases.
You
Yeah,
know,
or-
I think Pam's asking for you to email her a
Yeah.
written copy.
And so
Well, also those phrases, maybe not the longest version, but the abbreviated version.
Yeah.
May I be safe, may I be happy, may I
Be
be
healthy,
or happy.
may I live with ease.
Those are in the chapter that I wrote in Practicing in Difficult Times, which Myo also wrote a chapter, which we're giving you as a gift for your son. So you can look up and see those phrases, but they're also really easy to find.
On the
And
web.
various, variations.
Yeah, and you can make up your own once you get that idea, yeah. And the main thing is that they have purchase. So because I practice with them, they're not just like out here, they're in here. So then when I go, may I be safe, okay. May I be safe and that's the point of practicing. Yeah.
thank you so much.
Call and response. The many beings are numberless, vowing to carry them across. The many beings are numberless, vowing to carry them across. Greed, anger, and ignorance rise endlessly, vowing to cut off the mind road. Greed, anger, and ignorance rise endlessly, vowing to cut off the mind road. Dharma gates are bound countless, vowing to wake to them all. Dharma gates are countless, vowing to wake to them all. Buddha's way is all embracing,
before we disembark, I should make a few announcements, and I need everyone's help to, help me remember them. But next week, Daishin is going to be here. Next weekend, there's some family-focused time on Saturday morning. Anybody who is interested in helping wrangle children would be most welcome. And also there's going to be time for, let's see, are we doing that? Is he doing moon ceremony? He's doing Zazen Kai on Friday afternoon, I think.
I have not heard anything.
I asked about the precept ceremony and he said, let's talk about it, and I assume that means no.
So Tara, do you have all this in your mind?
So Friday afternoon and evening is Zazen. It's mostly like deep practice. And then there's a variety of things, like you said, family programming, and then I think sutra tracing on Saturday afternoon and Rakasu sewing. But the newsletter will be going out probably Tuesday, and it'll have all that information.
Another thing that we may include in the newsletter is that there's a Dharma book club course coming up. Sarah's going to be leading us in that, and we're looking at a fairly new book called Opening to Oneness. It's related to the precepts as well, sort of going in line with the people who are working on precepts now. That'll be a 6-week course, probably starting around the 1st of April.
What day is it on? What
Don't
day?
have, it's gonna be on Wednesday evenings.
What time?
We have to.
To be determined.
finalize it.
It'll be in the newsletter.
It'll be in the newsletter.
Yeah.
So, and the only other thing I can think of off the top of my head is that we're gonna have tea and coffee and conversation after this. And anyone else? Well, it's
It's a little early, we
it's
can
a
talk
little
about,
early.
yeah,
We can
Spiritual
talk about it.
Saturday is coming up on April 8th, it's gonna be at Jean Leahy Mall, and we are gonna have a table there to answer questions about Zen Buddhism for people who are walking by and who are interested.
So it would be nice to have participation in that. It's about 3 hours.
Yeah.
11 to 2 in the afternoon. And that is the Buddha's birthday as well. And Shuji Valdine will be up from Kansas to help us celebrate Buddha's birthday on April the 8th, which is, unfortunately, I guess, also Easter.
Are we having a spring fundraiser?
Yes, but I don't know the details yet. So Sarah and I will get together on it, sure. Okay, thank you, everyone else, everyone. If you'll brush your cushions, put them back in place